wanted to start off with a bit of a hot topic that comes up a lot, but a headline stat from the report this year has said that 96% of firms raised their rates in the last 12 months, and most plan to do so again in 2026. Despite that, we're seeing 89% of firms saw write-offs increase year on year, and 90% also saw write-downs and discounting increase. So these stats kind of speak to what we've talked about for a while as a doom loop. So law firms are year on year raising their rates, some quite highly, and they're doing that to kind of protect profitability. But what they're not aware of is then partners are offering discounts to keep clients happy. And clients want more value from the work because they're paying a premium and they're not seeing that. So write-offs are increasing. What's your kind of initial take on these stats? Do you think the kind of doom loop cycle is worsening?
Yeah, I mean, I think the stat 90%, 96 or 99% are raising their rates. I don't think that comes as a surprise to anybody. Law firms do that all the time. I think what that stat coupled with the write-off stat, I think, is hiding is that firms are not realizing those rate increases, right? There's something happening under the surface that's causing them to increase those write-offs, have those write-offs increase year over year. And I think we expect firms to raise their rates. I think it's a healthy environment. They can raise their rates, but it's really on the backside of able to realize those rates. And when we were talking earlier, I think we're not surprised, right, Eric, by that. But I think the real challenge firms have to look at, and we'll get into this deeper as we get into the rest of the report, is what structurally inside the firm is missing that is causing them to write off basically all those gains they're getting from the price increase.
Yeah, agreed. I think I wonder who the 4% are that didn't raise rates, because I've not run into them. So let's start with that. And usually this time of year, particularly in the U.S., people want to know, well, what is the outlook for rates for 26? My bold prediction is they will raise rates at an above average size again this year. And again, I think it's back to Rob alluded to is they're covering some of the bad behavior and bad kind of hygiene under the surface. That says, well, we got to raise rates 4% to net 4. Still healthy, still good for the business, but coupling all that together and kind of cleaning up some of the issues in the back office would be paramount to holding that.
As we get deeper into the cycle, we'll talk a little bit more around cash flow profitability. But I think, again, when I talk about firms, to realize those rates, that really is the key metric, right? Like, I can raise my rates, but as Eric said, if I'm raising 12 to get 4, that's not a good spot. I'd rather raise 10 and get 6.
And I think too, the headline rate of 12% is not anywhere near what they expect in net, right? Because they've got a lot of multi-year agreements, they've got discount agreements, they've got a lot of AFAs in place as well. So again, what that all nets out to is what really is important, as Rob alluded.
You touched upon it there, Eric. You don't think it's going to happen in 2026, where firms have to they hit the ceiling of rate hikes. Do you think next year could be the year, or what do you think the kind of long-term future looks like?
The Nostradamus moment. I am not sure. I don't think 27 will be any different. I mean, there's nothing, the global economy is chugging along. We'll talk later in this discussion about AI and the impact that could have. I think that, might enter in. I also think that our clients are being smarter about the billing data they've got and what they can do with it. So I think there'll be more scrutiny around, comparison of rates between firms, comparison of service levels. It's going to remain a competitive market, but all indications are rates will continue to rise.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. They'll go up again, and they'll go up to 27, they'll go up to 28, they'll go up to 29. Firms will continue to raise because also under the hood, as Eric alluded to, their costs are going up as well, right? At the end of the day, it's more expensive to run a law firm this year than it was last year. And so they're going to have to raise those rates, but it gets back to, can they realize those rates? Can they realize those gains?
What do you think all of that is going to do to the client relationship? How's that going to impact it?
I mean, it will impact it if they're not being transparent about why they're doing it. It'll impact it if firms are not open about why they're raising their rates. At the end of the day, they're delivering a service and the client is paying for that service. And so as long as they're able to articulate why or justify in that case, why the rates are what they are, or what the outcome that they're trying to achieve with the client, I think that's fine. I mean, I think if you just raise your rates without a conversation, you're opening the door for that client to maybe shop elsewhere. It's like no other business, right? Any other business, I should say. If you raise your rates or it could keep going up and you're not providing equal value to that, your clients are going to shop around.
And a conversation isn't an email or a letter, right? It's a conversation. So I think that's important. I think, when you think about it, clients are looking for predictability and consistency. And when they get that, they're generally pretty happy. Of course, the outcome is what matters. But to the point that you can show them what you're going to be billing them, show them how you're going to bill them, and do it consistently, and don't surprise them, you'll probably come out in a pretty good spot.
So I wanted to talk to you both about some of the cash flow related data that came out of this report. So what we're seeing is 26% of firms are now citing cash flow predictability as their top financial concern. And that has drastically risen since last year, and it's overtaken profitability. 50% identify age WIP as the primary driver of cash flow pressure, and that's up 32% from last year. So there's quite a bit of nervousness and focus on cash flow right now from firms. Did that data surprise you at all, Rob?
It didn't surprise me. I mean, I think if you look at, going back to rate increases, other things we were talking about, if you look at how the firms operate, I mean, profitability is a metric. It's a certain metric. It's a directional metric. But if you really want to get under the hood of the strength of the firm, of the sort of the health of the firm, you're really looking at cash flow. You're looking at their WIP and AR together, their lockup with their production. I think that really gives you a sense of where is the firm sitting. And it's not surprising to me, under increased pressure from slower paying clients, increased pressure from rising costs, it's not surprising to me that firms have identified cash, in this case, cash flow predictability and WIP and things like that as higher concern, right? They want to have better visibility into that, because at the end of the day, that is the true strength or the measure of the health of the business. Profitability, it's a great metric. It's a very public metric. It's one that we've talked about before that firms use for a variety of different reasons. But at the end of the day, it's your cash flow and it's your liquidity and your strength. That's the strength of the firm, not necessarily just profitability. So it doesn't surprise me that that's something that's increased this year.
Yeah, I think I would agree with what Rob said. I think the profit per equity partner is often a recruiting tool, right? I mean, what you're publishing is what's going to be picked up in the legal press. Not a massive surprise either with the profitability these firms are showing, that their clients are choosing not to pay quite as quickly, and yet you're showing $1 billion in profit. It's hard to make a case that you're always struggling. Anecdotally, and this is the first time since 2021, we sell software. A lot of those renewals come due at the end of the calendar year, which is typically the end of the year for most U.S. firms. And because they're cash-based, it's important to them what cash comes in and what cash goes out. Long way of saying, we had a whole lot of clients come to us in December saying they'd like to prepay 2026 and even 2027 in some cases. We had a couple of others who said, look, can I extend payment into January? Really trying to conserve cash. So again, my crystal ball says my guess is 25 is really strong for some of these firms. They have the right hygiene in place. They're doing the right things from a collections perspective. And they actually said, let's de-risk 26 by pushing some cash out in 25 before they pay it all out to their partners, right? So again, I think at the end of the day, these firms are trying to be smarter and more aggressive with their internal measures and their billing hygiene. Those are good things to do, regardless of the profitability of the firm.
Yeah. Go ahead. I was just going to say, touching on those kind of being smarter with internal measures, who do you think is the kind of primary owner of aged WIP and AR within a law firm? Is it the lawyer? Has that changed in recent years?
No, I don't think it's changed. It is it's funny. It's like in sales, everybody's part of sales. In this case, it's everybody has a hand to play, right? Finance is involved because they have to be giving timely information to the lawyers. The partners are involved because they're the ones who have the relationship to the client. So at the end of the day, if your relationships are good with your clients, the partner should be able to pick up the phone and make that call, right? If we're talking, you're 90, 120 days behind on a collection, that is something that the partner should have the ability to pick up the phone and call, right? I mean, that's normal. That's like any other business, right? That if you're running into those things. And I think, so to answer your question more directly, I think everybody's involved. But both the back office has a place to play there because they have to provide the lawyers with the information. Because at the end of the day, that person is out working, they're doing their job providing the service they need service, they're not necessarily thinking all the time about the business side of it, which you don't want them to when they're in doing their work. But at the same time, they have to take a step back and operate like a business, and finance has a role to play there as well.
Yeah. What's the best way for them to provide that information quickly to the lawyers?
I mean, behavior.
No.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, regardless of how you do it, I think that having timely reporting, having information delivered to the right people at the right time. We'll talk about this a little bit later with some of the other technology things that came out of the survey. But I mean, having proper structure in place to provide that, where they don't have to look hard for it, it's in front of them. I think that's really where back office has a role to play with.
I think there's a reality too, is when the billing cycle is on the right path, right? That there's no reason that a partner should engage in collections, right? That's wasted time and effort. It's the exceptions they should be managing, right? And if you see a bill that's a large one and it's 4 or 5 months overdue, there's one of two things: either it didn't get to the right person to pay, or there's a problem with the case and you need to engage, right? So I would say it is exception based. I think law firms are massively guilty of a big collections push at the end of their fiscal year or calendar year. I think we've conditioned our clients for the December discount. Just say, don't pay the bill till December. It was desperate to get cash in, and they'll probably offer me a discount to get it paid. So we've kind of educated, like I said, law firm clients have educated the market on the best time to get a deal, which again is just lost profit.
Are you coining that term, December discount?
I have, yes. But I want to copyright that bit.
Okay, you heard it here first.
Trademark it. I mean, but Eric is right. I mean, I think that conditioning, as you say,
It's hard for you to say that, isn't it?
it is very hard for you to say that. But no, that he's absolutely correct. That if your business is running correctly, in theory, your partner shouldn't have to be running around in December. Every law firm does this. In November, it starts to creep up. They know they have to start doing this. The reports, they start pounding finance. Can I get this report? Can I get my stuff? So if they can get their collections in, if it's running properly, and I'm not criticizing firms, but if it's running smoothly, let's say, I don't want to say properly, if it's running smoothly, that's just ticking over normal, and you shouldn't have to have this big crunch at the end. But that's something internally law firms just have to work on. They have to get better at doing those kinds of things.
Yeah. We're going to talk in a second about kind of the billable hour still being the key metric that lawyers are kind of measured by. But what we are seeing is law firms are starting to introduce other KPIs and metrics like management of WIP and aged AR, and that's come through in the research. Is that reflective of the conversations that you've been having with law firms recently?
I would say it is. I think at the end of the day, there's KPIs that they're measuring their attorneys by. Whether or not that has a carrot or stick attached is probably likely to lead to a better outcome. We are seeing firms take a more aggressive interest in managing profitability and that impacting compensation. I think there's still some improvement that could be made there, maybe get a little more aggressive. But part of it is just the kind of culture of the firm, right? This is one of the reasons we're a preferred provider of legal services and or preferred place to work is because of the way we operate. Friendly, we take care of our clients. So it's always a balance. There's other firms that are massively aggressive with it. And that's kind of their culture, what they're used to.
Yeah, no doubt for that. I mean, I think bringing it back to the WIP stuff for a moment. When we talk about managing WIP, I think the reason I think part of that stat is going up a lot is I think firms, they've always realized this, but I think it's coming to the fore that managing that aged WIP and managing that production is really about not necessarily the cash flow part of it, but it's really about turning that into, this is a risk to our profit. Every day that something sits at WIP, every day that something sits in aged AR, beyond the normal budgets, you're always going to have that run. But anything that sits beyond that 120 days, into that you have a less likely chance of collecting. You have a less likely chance of your client paying. So to me, I think it's not surprising these numbers have increased because it tells me that the firms are putting this in your risk category as opposed to just a straight cash collections castle.